China's rare earth magnet exports to the U.S. surge. A major supply chain shift. Imagine the entire electric vehicle industry holding its breath. That's how critical China's rare earth magnet exports are to global tech. In a stunning reversal, China's shipments of these vital components to the U.S. skyrocketed over 660% in June compared to May. That's not just a rebound. It's a full-blown explosion in trade after a tense standoff between the world's two largest economies. Here's the breakthrough you might have missed. This surge directly follows new agreements between Beijing and Washington to resolve trade conflicts around these essential minerals. Now, unpacking this dramatic shift. Customs data reveals China shipped 353 metric tons of rare earth magnets to the U.S. in June. A monumental leap from May's figures. But here's the controversial truth behind the numbers. This recovery comes after China strategically weaponized these exports just months ago. In early April, China added rare earth items to its export control list as direct retaliation against U.S. tariffs. That move triggered a supply chain nightmare globally. Let's break down why this matters so much. Rare earth magnets, think neodymium-based components, aren't just important. They're irreplaceable for manufacturing electric vehicles, wind turbines, and advanced electronics. When China tightened exports, the licensing bottlenecks became so severe that by May, shipments had plummeted, forcing international automakers to halt production lines. Picture factories standing idle because they couldn't get these palm-sized but invaluable magnets. The broader context adds another layer. While U.S. shipments roared back, China's total global rare earth magnet exports in June reached 3,188 tons. A 157.5% monthly increase but still 38.1% below June 2024 levels. Analysts predict the recovery will continue through July, as more exporters secure licenses. But here's the twist that'll spark debate. Despite this rebound, first half 2025 exports remain down 18.9% year-on-year at 22,319 tons. This volatility exposes an uncomfortable reality. With over 90% global market dominance, China can literally switch the world's tech supply chain on or off at will. When one nation controls critical materials this tightly, does this trade deal represent genuine stability? Or just a temporary pause in an economic Cold War? What's your take? Should Western nations accept this dependency as inevitable? Or is this the wake-up call needed to accelerate alternative supply chains? Drop your perspective below. U.S. firms race to secure rare earth magnets as imports surge 660%. America's race to secure rare earth magnets is heating up, and the numbers are staggering. In June alone, U.S. imports of these vital components from China skyrocketed by an eye-popping 660%. Why the sudden surge? The answer lies in a complex web of global trade tensions, technological dependence, and a scramble for resources that power everything from electric vehicles to cutting-edge medical devices. But here's where it gets controversial. China, which dominates roughly 90% of the world's rare earth magnet production and refining, recently tightened its grip by imposing new export licensing requirements. This move, widely interpreted as a response to the U.S. imposing steep tariffs on Chinese goods, sent shockwaves through American industries. Companies across the U.S., especially in automotive, electronics, and renewable energy, found themselves in a desperate hunt for these magnets, which are essential for manufacturing and innovation. According to data from China's General Administration of Customs, the U.S. imported about 353 metric tons of rare earth permanent magnets in June, a dramatic increase from the previous month. However, it's worth noting that this figure is still only about half of what was imported in June of the previous year. Globally, China exported 3,188 metric tons of these magnets last month, marking a 160% jump from May, but still 38% lower than the same period last year. The U.S. now stands as the second largest buyer of Chinese rare earth magnets, trailing only Germany. And this is the part most people miss. The recent spike in exports followed a new trade framework between Washington and Beijing, which included a partial easing of restrictions on rare earth exports and a rollback of some U.S. tech curbs on shipments to China. For example, NVIDIA announced plans to resume shipments of its H20 AI chips to China after previous restrictions were lifted. Similarly, American AI chip software companies saw some of their business limitations in China rolled back, signaling a thaw in certain areas of the tech trade war. Chinese magnet manufacturers have started to receive export licenses again, offering a lifeline to companies that had been paralyzed by supply shortages. The impact of these shortages has been severe. Several European auto parts suppliers were forced to halt production, and even emerging sectors like humanoid robotics felt the pinch. Elon Musk, for instance, revealed that Tesla's Optimus robot production was disrupted due to the rare earth crunch. This situation has forced governments worldwide to rethink their reliance on China for rare earths. Some are exploring ways to boost domestic mining and processing, but experts warn that building a supply chain to rival China's could take years. The refining and separation of rare earth elements is a highly specialized, complex process, one in which China has invested decades of research and development. As Yu Wang, a senior rare earths consultant at Wood Mackenzie, explained, China's expertise gives it a formidable edge that won't be easily matched. In response, the U.S. is also turning to recycling as a partial solution. Just last week, Apple and MP Materials announced a $500 million partnership to develop a recycling facility aimed at strengthening the domestic supply of rare earth magnets for products like the iPhone. This move highlights the growing urgency to find alternatives, even as the world remains deeply intertwined with China's supply chains. Here's a bold question. Is the U.S. doing enough to break free from China's rare earth monopoly? Or are these efforts too little, too late? Some argue that recent concessions by Washington, such as easing tech restrictions, underscore just how much leverage China holds in this high-stakes trade relationship. Peter Alexander of Zeben Advisors pointed out that these moves reflect the reality of China's bargaining power. So what do you think? Should the U.S. double down on building its own rare earth industry? Or is cooperation with China the only realistic path forward? Do you see these trade maneuvers as necessary compromises or dangerous dependencies? Share your thoughts and join the debate below. This is a conversation that could shape the future of global technology and industry. Breaking China's stranglehold on rare earths, U.S. response and global implications. Imagine a world where a single country holds the keys to the technologies that power our future. Drones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and even advanced weaponry. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality of China's dominance over rare earth elements, a group of minerals that, while not actually rare, are incredibly difficult and environmentally costly to extract. But here's where it gets controversial. China's near monopoly on these critical resources has become a geopolitical weapon, leaving the rest of the world scrambling for alternatives. And this is the part most people miss. Breaking this stranglehold isn't just about economics. It's about reshaping global power dynamics. To stay ahead of the curve in economics, politics, and beyond, our seasoned Kiplinger letter team delivers the latest insights and forecasts directly to you. Subscribe now, https://subscribe at kiplinger.com/lock/kwp/kipcomarticles to get exclusive updates or explore a free issue to see how we keep you informed. While many of our forecasts go public a few days later, subscribers get the inside track first. China's grip on rare earth elements isn't accidental. Decades ago, its leaders recognized the strategic value of these minerals and aggressively exploited their domestic deposits, often at the expense of the environment. Today, rare earths are indispensable for everything from smartphones to fighter jets, and China controls over 80% of global production. This dominance gives Beijing unprecedented leverage in trade disputes, as evidenced by its recent threats to restrict exports to the U.S. during tariff negotiations. The U.S. has already softened its stance on tariffs in response to China's export bans, but the tension remains. Beijing continues to delay shipments to American importers and outright refuses to sell to U.S. defense contractors. Companies worldwide are racing to reduce their reliance on rare earths, with BMW leading the charge by producing electric vehicles that bypass these minerals entirely. Japan, scarred by a Chinese export ban over a decade ago, has stockpiled a year's worth of rare earths, a temporary fix at best. But here's the real challenge. Building new mines and processing plants outside China is no small feat. It takes time, up to 3 years by some estimates, and faces significant hurdles. Local communities often oppose these projects due to environmental concerns, particularly the toxic wastewater and byproducts. Adding to the complexity, China dominates the manufacturing of the specialized equipment needed for processing rare earths. This double-edged monopoly means breaking free requires not just resources, but political will and international cooperation. Countries like Brazil, South Africa, Namibia, and Greenland hold promising deposits, but extraction remains uncertain. Greenland, for instance, is believed to have vast reserves, which partly explains former President Trump's interest in acquiring the territory. However, mining there may prove impractical. Meanwhile, the U.S. has just one operational rare earth mine, Mountain Pass in California, and is struggling to build new processing plants. Lynas, an Australian miner, is constructing a facility in Texas, but it hinges on federal funding. Another potential site in Nebraska, Neocorp's Elk Creek deposit, faces similar challenges. Here's the controversial question. Is the world willing to invest the time, money, and political capital needed to end China's monopoly? Or will we continue to rely on stopgap measures, leaving our technological future in the hands of a single nation? The answer could redefine global power structures for decades to come. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's spark a debate. For more expert insights on investing, taxes, retirement, and personal finance, subscribe to Kiplinger's Personal Finance. https://subscribe kiplinger.com/servlet/ordersgateway $CDs_mag_code =KP $CDs_page_ID =2682337 $CDs_response =I3ZPZ001 and save up to 74%. Or sign up for our free e-newsletters to get the best advice delivered straight to your inbox. Stay informed, stay ahead. This analysis originally appeared in the Kiplinger Letter, a trusted source of weekly forecasts since 1923. Subscribe today. https://subscribe kiplinger.com/lock/kwb/kipcomarticles to understand what's coming and make the most of your investments. Related content. What's happening with Trump tariffs? News, updates, and analysis. https://www.kiplinger.com/taxes/what's-happening-with-Trump-tariffs. Trump dials back most tariffs but targets China. https://www.kiplinger.com/politics/Trump-dials-back-tariffs-but-targets-China. Kiplinger Trade Outlook. https://www.kiplinger.com/economic-forecasts/trade-deficit.